All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Anacortes City Council meeting of January 13th, 2025. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Mr. Franciac, can you take the roll, please?
Okay. Mr. Fantini.
Here.
Mr. Young.
Here.
Mr. Walters.
Here.
Ms. Cleland McGrath. Ms. Moulton.
Here.
Mr. McDougall.
Here.
Ms. Hubick.
Here.
Thank you.
Mayor Miller,
Ms. Moulton.
I'd like to make a motion to excuse Ms. Cleland McGrath from tonight's meeting.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Moulton, a second by Mr. Young to excuse Ms. Cleland McGrath. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, announcements and committee reports. Announcements, thanks to staff and everybody who were able to participate on Parade of Champions on Sunday. And I know the exciting Grand Marshal T-Bone getting more press for anybody retiring. So good on T-Bone. Also, a reminder, city offices will be closed next Monday, January 20th, in honor of Martin Luther King Day. And the council meeting will be on Tuesday, the 21st, which also means solid waste. It will be on holiday schedule, so no garbage service on Monday, the 20th, and we'll collect Monday and Tuesday customers on Tuesday, the 21st. Waste management, as usual, will follow our city schedule for recycling and yard waste. So that's it for me. First item on the list is Historic Preservation Board appointment. So it is my pleasure to present to council Fletcher McLean for a 3-year term to the Anacortes Historic Preservation Board, and this requires council confirmation. Council, questions?
Mayor Miller.
Mr. Fantini.
I move to appoint Fletcher McLean to the Anacortes Historic Preservation Board for a 3-year term as presented.
Second.
Okay, a motion by Mr. Fantini and a second by Mr. Young to appoint Fletcher McLean to the Anacortes Horse Preservation Board. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. On to item 3B, which is Finance Committee report.
Mayor Miller.
Ms. Moulton.
Thank you. The Finance Committee met on January 9th, last Thursday, and it was council members Cleland McGrath and I, and Finance Director Steve Hoagland and Accountant Rhonda Peck, and we discussed the new ERP, which I forget what that stands for, but it's the enterprise software, which we've been.
Sorry.
Oh, no, please.
Enterprise Resource Program.
Okay, thank you. And so that's something that staff has been looking into with the help of consultants for quite a few months now. And they eventually chose Tyler, which stood head and shoulders above the rest. It was really an easy decision, even though they added a couple other companies to look at kind of late in the game just to be certain. It helped provide certainty that Tyler was the way to go. We talked a little bit about the sales tax that has diminished, but not as much as we thought it was going to. We have talked about this previously here at council as well. Overall, it diminished about 3.2%. And we have one senior accountant position we have a senior accountant that's leaving, but we're not going to replace that person immediately, but we'll keep that position in the budget. But things have been restructured so that people in the department have been able to take on added responsibilities, and in cases are actually excited to challenge themselves and do some new things. So we will be covered there for now. And the state auditors did their audit of 2023, and though we had some upheavals over that year with software issues and things. We did our accounting department did a stellar job, and we got very high marks with no written recommendations to act upon. So good job to everyone who worked so hard in the finance department to get us there. So that was really great news for all of us. And on January 21st, next week, we will get a full finance update to council and the public.
All right. Any questions for Finance Committee? All right, next up is Planning Committee.
Mayor Miller.
Ms. Moulton.
The Planning Committee met at 5 p.m. today. It was Mr. Walters and myself, and Planning Director John Coleman, and Senior Planner Libby Grage. And we talked about the comp plan process and where the Planning Commission is with that. They have worked on draft goals and policies for land use, the land use element, the housing element, and transportation element, and had public comments and public hearings for those. And upcoming are goals and policies for the capital facilities plan and our utilities. So that is moving right along with lots of opportunities still for the public to weigh in on that. And tomorrow night, the Climate Action Team will meet here in council chambers at 6 p.m., which I'm looking forward to. And that's pretty much it.
Questions for planning?
Mayor Miller?
Mr. Fantini?
Not about any of that. Thank you. I just had a question just following up on, there's going to be a meeting on the 30th of this month around the park on West 6th. And I know that there were some, I believe, reports that were done on the West 5th plot, and there was maybe some discovery there about wetlands or something. And I was just wondering if we had any information around that as we go into that discussion about the West 6th Park, just kind of knowing how all that fits together. I don't know if we had gotten anything back from Habitat on that when they did their kind of assessment.
I could try
Oh,
to
yeah, go ahead, Ms.
take
Moulton.
a shot
Yeah.
at that. So Habitat found a property that has better suits their needs that they're looking for applicants for, or have been, on 29th Street. So they've essentially walked away from that project. But my understanding is that there are wetlands on that site that would present some challenges to development, but I can't tell you more than that. I think maybe Public Works would have a better idea of that.
All right, next up is Port City Liaison Committee.
Mayor Miller?
Mr. Walters.
The Port City Liaison Committee met last week. We had only one item on our agenda, and that was the future Port City Event Center. We have, as you know, interlocal agreements drafted for operations and for construction of such a facility. And our discussion in this meeting revolved around two issues. One, we considered adding a requirement to the draft that the port operate the future facility without mandating a caterer for events that reserve the facility. For example, they're planning an adjoining hotel. We wouldn't want the port to lock events into using the caterer provided by the adjoining hotel for events that aren't associated with the hotel, aren't using the stays or whatever, because that would reduce affordability for local nonprofits. And the two commissioners there agreed, so we will add that provision to the draft. The big item of discussion, however, was the consideration of contingencies for the possibility if the operation is to lose money. The port is concerned, if that were to happen, how could they be compensated? And so we proposed a couple of alternatives, none of which really involve simply writing checks to the port to cover losses, but instead alternatives where the city could take over operations, or they could outsource operations, or they could reimburse the city for the cost of construction, or a variety of things like that. Port's outside counsel is going to be looking at those options and get them feedback, and then the Port Commission will consider some of those and get us feedback, and then we'll go through another round of edits. So that's where we are on that, and hopefully coming to some conclusion sometime soon.
All right, questions? Okay, next up is Public Safety Committee. Well, Okay, I think it did meet, and I was not in attendance. I think Ms. Cleveland McGrath was there, so we can, council can get an update from her at some point in the future. Next up is Housing Affordability and Community Services Committee.
Mayor Miller.
Mr. Walters.
This committee met last Wednesday, January 8th. We had a guest, Chuck Messenger from Volunteers of America. He was there to talk about two things. First of all, the point-in-time count. This is a national count of homeless people. It helps determine funding from both state and federal governments. January 30th is the designated day this year. Then they will do their collection of data between January 30th and February 5th. Basically, they're trying to determine how many people, who is homeless in the jurisdiction, which is Skagit County for their purposes, during that time period, and specifically, were you homeless on January 30th, hence the name, Point in Time Count. Now, they are trying to do additional outreach this year. Certainly, they recognize that nationally and assumedly locally, the Point in Time Count undercounts the number of people that are homeless. Lots of rural people especially aren't particularly visible. They are offering supplies for people that are homeless, that are literally unsheltered and on the street. And hopefully that will incentivize people to raise their hand and be counted, because it does matter for how much funding we can receive at both the state and the local level. AFC, the Salvation Army, Samish, Swinomish tribes are all going to participate in that. They indicated they really don't have a coordinated strategy for Fidalgo Island yet, and as you may recall from our committee report from the beginning of 2022, we don't end up with numbers for Anacortes specifically as a result of this. It's really aggregated at the county level. But they're going to be training survey collectors over the next couple of weeks. They hope to as well capture non-homeless people, people that are couch surfing, people that are on the edges, in an addendum this year. So we have access to that additional data as well. Basically, anybody that is in an RV or even a boat where you don't have all the amenities that are usual for housing counts as homeless for their purposes. They are soliciting volunteers. Anybody who wants to volunteer for this project can do so at www.voaww.org/PIT point-in-time count. And then the second thing he talked about was sort of a personal project of his, which is promoting Conestoga huts. They are reminiscent of the Conestoga wagons, but no wooden wheels. The idea is they're very low-cost shelters for people that are completely unsheltered. We thought that it was a great idea. We don't necessarily have a great use for them here in Anacortes, but it's potentially an option in certain circumstances as very time-limited shelter for people that have just nothing. And then we did some goal setting for the next year. Didn't finish with that process, and we had one committee member absent. But we expect that we will need to do quite a bit of work supporting the comp plan effort in 2025. And then we'll talk about other ordinances. Multifamily tax exemption program has come up a number of times, and amending the sales tax contracts for AHA and AFC. And then importantly, just one little factoid, and maybe we can include one of these in every committee report. There's a new academic article that indicates that for every new 10 market rate homes, completely unsubsidized market rate homes that gets built, that results in 7 lower income homes, less than the average market rate, becoming available in the market. And 4 of those 10 become available at the lowest income range. As people that are already in the market, who are already paying for housing, move up into newer construction, potentially more desirable new construction, thus making houses available for people that have less money, but still some money to spend. And so it's important to keep in mind that even new market rate construction helps ease the housing crisis.
Mayor Miller?
Mr. Young.
No, I just wanted a follow-up question for Mr. Walters. You listed the Anacortes Family Center and so many others. You did not mention community action.
Mr. Walters.
Yes, so Community Action had this contract in previous years, and the county decided to give it to Voices of America this year, not Voices, Volunteers of America this year instead of Community Action. And they didn't indicate if Community Action was participating in it or not. I think that they probably are. I didn't write them down on the list.
No, no, no.
So
That
it's a good
answers my
question.
question. I was just wanted to be clear. Thank you very much.
Any other questions for Hacks? Okay, next, Personnel Committee, and I did attend that one, and I think Christine, Miss Cleveland McGrath also was the only one, but not here, so maybe if the...
Mayor Miller?
Oh, Mr. Fantini.
I was actually able to sit earlier today for a few minutes with Director Moyle.
Oh, and you got
an
the-
update on the meeting,
all
so
right,
I'd be happy
Mr.
to.
Fantini.
I'd be happy to provide
Thank
some
you.
information. So during the month of December, we had one new hire, which I think is actually a really good story. This is a gentleman that worked in the Parks Department and was looking forward to hopefully moving into the Park Maintenance Tech, a position that we currently have on pause. But he was able to find another opportunity within our street sewer system maintenance tech. So a really good story of kind of being able to retain a good employee by moving them around and transferring them based on their desires to another department. We also had 2 exits, one that was a retirement. We currently have 15 open positions total, 9 active job postings, 3 positions that are currently on pause. The police recruiting is going into full swing. The city's going to be hosting PST testing for entry-level officers in June. And they also have about 3 college career fairs that are scheduled in February and also in April. A graphic designer is working on creating new recruitment flyers and banners for these fairs. And of course, great city logoed swag and handouts, keychains, all kinds of stuff to hopefully engage and get some potential candidates excited about coming to the APD. Police negotiations update. Their next meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, January 22nd. And that was pretty much the highlights.
All right, yeah, yes, we're aggressively recruiting police officers, because 7 of those folks we're trying to get police officers.
Oh,
Any
one
question? Go,
One other
Mr.
thing,
Fantini.
there is going to be an MOU coming to council fairly soon about the new police dog that is the search and rescue / drug dog. And one interesting point about that is that the Cedar Woolley Police Department is also acquiring a dog that will have the similar skill set, which will make this one more available to Anacortes on kind of a shared schedule. So that'll be nice for all of us.
Yeah, lots of good cooperation between agencies when it comes to that. Any other questions for public safety? All right, any other announcements or committee reports I may have missed?
Mayor Miller.
Ms. Moulton.
Thank you. So on Saturday, I had the good fortune to attend a good news event at the Skagit Transit Center that's under construction. I'm currently on the board of SCAT and really excited to be on it at this exciting time. So this is a project for this new facility, zero emissions, hydrogen buses, solar power, all these great things. This has been a project that's been in the works for about 10 years. And SCAT has gone out for funding year after year after year and has finished finally phase 1. And we just got the good news, and Congressman Larson came and spoke to the board and some of the staff and presented us with a $19.5 million check from the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law Funds. It's a RAISE grant, which I don't know what RAISE stands for. It's another acronym, but it's a highly competitive grant, and we got it. So that brings us within $5 million of where we need to be, which is still a lot of money, but that almost $20 million takes a huge chunk out of it, and this should get us through the next phase. So really great news and really fun to be part of such a such an energizing occasion where all kinds of good stuff is going on at SCAT right now. So more to follow as that continues.
Oh, great. Thank you for that and for that report. And welcome to the Skagit Transit Board, which I had the pleasure to chair last year. And that MOA 2 project, the other thing for the public's knowledge, it takes the current bus facility out of the floodplain, which is really important. But it's over by the airport.
Mayor Miller?
Mr. Young.
Thank you. No, I just wanted to comment and follow up, how important it is for participation and being at the table as those decisions are made. And so, I'm very happy and thankful that you are there at the table and listening, and also, kind of keeping an eye out for Anacortes as well as the county, and because, there are changes being made. And what I appreciate about the work that you're doing is that by being at the table there, you're seeing ways to be able to help our county and also help Anacortes define what it wants and how we get it and what can be best used. So thank you.
All right, any other announcements or committee reports? All right, we will move on to public comment. Any member of the public wish to address the council? This is the time, and I have one person signed up, Linda Martin. Topic is budget process.
Okay.
And we might test out our new timers on you, so don't be alarmed if it goes haywire, and we'll still give you the 3 minutes. Yeah, you still got to push the button and
Okay.
green light. Yeah.
All right. My name is Linda Martin from Anacortes. So good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. Now that the budget process is over for this year, and having now witnessed 2 of these cycles as a citizen observer, I have a couple of observations to share and a few suggestions for you to consider. I'm not laying blame anywhere because sometimes we can continue with a process simply because that's the process that was used in the past. But here's what I noticed. The main driver for the budget appears to be the different department directors. I noticed that almost without exception, each director proposed around 4% increase in their budgets. Taken by themselves, it's not too alarming, but here a 4% and there a 4%, and pretty soon you're talking about real money. I noticed that your finance director, in order to balance the proposed budget, recommended the 1% property tax increase, and you also approved an increase of the fees for services. I think it was a little over 2%. And I noticed a hiring freeze. I thought there were 5 authorized police officers, but I'm listening tonight. I don't know what the hiring freeze is, but there's some kind of a hiring freeze as a cost-saving measure. In addition, not only did you need to approve a significant bond to cover the remaining costs of the fiber project, but that several million more was added to this debt to help make up the budget balance. That's an alarming observation. So, regarding a few suggestions. The goal is to put guardrails on the budget to avoid the budget creep that's so prevalent, and not just in Anacortes. How do we do that? I suggest that the council and the mayor begin by working together to set budget priorities that will move the city toward a preferred future. Publish those priorities and make sure that department directors are posed to actualize the vision. Decide whether to increase taxes or not based on your knowledge of the communities you represent. Next, the finance director can use his skills to project several budget scenarios, understanding that there's always some give and take when it comes to developing budgets. These decisions will then guide each of the proposed department level budgets, and those budgets would be presented to you after you have set priorities and worked with your finance director for the overall budget. This level of leadership actually sets the guardrails and can be an effective tool in avoiding the increased government size because it's not sustainable. And as elected leaders, your priorities will actually guide the whole process. As you can see, just a few tweaks could make a significant difference next year when the budget season begins again. I'm happy to meet with any of you to discuss these ideas in more detail, and I hope you see that just making a few tweaks in the process, you will have a better outcome for all involved. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the feedback. Anybody, yes, go, I know you didn't sign up, but come on up and just state your name and where you live, and we give you 3 minutes. Make sure the green light is on, so we're right at the base of the microphone. There's a button. Green light's on. State your name and city you live in. And
Nick Genovese, Anacortes, Washington. Thanks for hearing me today. This might be more of a state issue. I just want to give some feedback from the folks I talked to. Our state legislators have just started a new legislative session in Olympia. They're discussing, of course, at the same time, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm hearing about an $8 billion state budget shortfall, and our incoming governor has suggested about $4 billion in cuts, austerity, and so on. Our outgoing governor had recommended a wealth tax, neither here nor there. The bottom line is here, I know you all have influence with our state legislatures. You have long-time relationships with them. I just want to make it clear from a public we have no appetite for any increased property tax rates at all. They're talking about removing the voter-mandated, initiated 1% cap on authority tax hikes. You know, working Washingtonians, to be considered middle class in Puget Sound, you need to be making $125,000 a year. I think there's a lot of families in Anacortes that don't make that are considered middle class, upwardly mobile, but they're right on that cusp. So escalating property tax, my request is, I was hoping to maybe see, I don't know how often our state legislators join us here, but we have no appetite for increased taxes. We're under the burden of a new carbon tax. We're under the burden of a variety of other taxes, of course. So again, if you could use your influence, just a voice from the public, we have no appetite for escalating property tax rates at all. Because that will, you know, the few things that we can do, we can take our family on a nice vacation once a year in the middle class arena. We can do some recreation. We can have our children go to music lessons. Those things will dry up. You know, we're already burdened now. We're burdened with inflation. The cost of living has escalated in the last 5 years, estimated 20 to 25% real cost of living, including inflation. So please, you know, with your influence, with our state legislatures, with your influence in Olympia, please take that message. Thank you.
thank you very much. Anybody, I don't see anybody else here. Anybody else like to address the council? All right, I don't see anybody online with their hands raised. So we will move on to our consent agenda, items A, B, and C. Council.
Mayor Miller,
Ms. Moulton.
I move that we approve consent agenda items 5A, B, and C.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Moulton, a second by Mr. McDougall to approve consent agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We're on to item 6, which is other business. It's an interlocal agreement with Skagit County for aerial imagery services. It's a discussion item with possible action. Mr. Rayum.
Mayor, Council, Andy Rayum, Public Works Director. Before you tonight is an interlocal agreement with Skagit County to procure and manage aerial photography for the city. The Skagit County has a consortium of cities as well as the county to fly the photography. They do fly an airplane, just so everybody knows it's not satellite or anything else. They literally fly an airplane over the county, and then they put call them tiles together to make an image of the ground with high resolution. We've been working with Skagit County and their consortium since 2019, which significantly reduces the cost. If we went at it alone, it was somewhere in the tune of like $90,000, I believe, the last time we did it alone. Before we use the contract, we do fly the aerials once every 2 years, and the whole thing, including licensing, is $11,072.
Questions for Mr. Rayum?
Mayor Miller.
Mr. McDougall?
It appears there's no questions, so looks good. I move that City Council authorize the mayor to execute interlocal cooperative agreement 25-026 GIS-001 between the City of Anacortes and Skagit County.
Second.
Motion by Mr. McDougall, a second by Mr. Fantini to approve the interlocal as presented. Mr. Franciac, take the vote, please. Oh, sorry, any additional discussion? Okay. Mr. Franciac, vote, please.
Mr. Young,
Yes.
Mr. Walters,
Yes.
Ms. Moulton,
Yes.
Mr. McDougall,
Yes.
Ms. Hubick,
Yes.
Mr. Fantini.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, be no further business for
Mayor-
the
Mayor
council.
Miller?
Oh, Mr. Young, sorry.
No,
go
thank
ahead.
you very much. Yeah, I didn't want this meeting to go without paying a compliment to Mr. Rayum and his staff.
Oh, you got to come back up to the podium then.
Come on back up. You know, I just thought it would be important. You know, we have a number of people here in Anacortes that are aging and by themselves. I happen to have the pleasure of sort of being adopted, I guess, in the last 2 months by a wonderful woman in her 90s that has no one else. And so she reached out to Aaron and Mr. Rayum, and she's been sort of talking about a problem that she's having, and Mr. Rayum and Aaron have just been stellar in calming her and working with her, and I appreciate that. You know, she calls me almost at least once a day, and I understand that sometimes she calls the staff, but I just want to thank you for your patience. I know it's not always easy. It's solutions. You're dealing with issues around the city itself, but I really appreciate the tact that you use, the savvy and the kindness for someone in her 90s that's by herself and a little afraid. And so thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, no further business for the council. I'll adjourn tonight's meeting. Have a